There's no other Matt Lamson. And so if I can just lean in as hard as possible to my personal brand and just crank that dial up to an 11, like that's the secret.
Welcome everybody to the Spear and Clover podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Skisick. Today I've got a really special guest. This guy is one of my favorite people in the world. He's my brother from another mother, Matt Lobster Legs Lamson. Welcome, Matt. How you doing, buddy?
Just when I think I forget about the lobster legs reference, it always brings back into my life.
So how you doing, man? How's everything going?
You know, despite COVID coming up with a new variant every 10 minutes, life's pretty good in my world. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm really excited. I've been really looking forward to this conversation, obviously, because, and genuinely, and I think you know this, I just love talking to you, hanging out with you. We've always had a really good bond, but really because you bring a very unique story to what has been this podcast for mostly just for entrepreneurs in a traditional sense. And what I mean by that is there are many different ways that your life touches entrepreneurship and following your passions, but you have a W-2 job, right?
Yeah, I'm a corporate cog, if you want to look it up.
Yeah. And so I think this is going to be a unique story. I think our listeners are really going to get a lot out of it. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do for a living, what you do for side hustles, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. I guess the thing that pays the bills is I work in executive search. So huge companies need a very specific person, and I have to go find that person. Mm-hmm. A lot of people hear, recruiting, and they think, can you get me a job? And it's actually kind of the other way around. It's because companies need a specific person, and I have to filter through like hundreds of different people to find the perfect match. And it's really interesting, man, because I learned so much about just corporate America, right? Like you came from a background in that and got out of it. Yeah. And I didn't know anything about that, and I'm now in it. Because I'm talking to guys who are VPs of sales, chief marketing officers, whatever, at, again, Fortune 500 companies, and trying to shuffle them all around. Yeah. So that's what pays the bills. But in terms of side hustles, I think there's a lot, right? You know, the way you and I met was through Chicago Elite Fitness, formerly Bucktown CrossFit, formerly Chicago Elite Fitness. And through that, you know, I signed up for the 6-week challenge. I'm sure your members or your listeners have heard about that or will hear about it at some point. But I signed up for this fitness challenge at your gym and then started, you know, coaching underneath you. And now it's primarily owned by Andrew Westcott, who's doing a great job at the new location. So I work part-time for him. I coach like Monday night classes. So I guess I don't even consider that a hustle, right? Because yes, I get paid for it, but I only do it because I love it. And also, you know, get a free membership out of it, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then the other one obviously is the Chris and Matt show. So tell us a little bit about that.
So that you could totally call that a hustle, but I think when you call something a side hustle, you expect that you're getting paid for it. And this is more of a passion project that would be great to get paid for it one day, but I think I dump more money into it because I love it so much. But now it's just called Chris and Matt. If you've ever seen the movie Social Network with Justin Timberlake and Jesse Eisenberg about Facebook, there's that classic scene where he goes, drop just Facebook. We used to be the Chris and Matt show, and we went through a major rebrand and are now just Chris and Matt.
I dig it. Hopefully our listeners will be able to find you on the social networks.
We're on everywhere. Instagram.
The Facebook.
YouTube, Facebook. We're behind the times, man. We're not on the TikToks yet, but
I think you guys would be really great on that. Well, so genuinely, like you came out, we worked on a project together. We made a bar for the new apartment you're in. I believe I'm sitting on that bar right now. And at the time I was getting ready to start the podcast, and there's just very few people that I really enjoy talking to more than you. And so I knew that I wanted to have you on. And I think that the angle that I really wanted to take was sort of this show business angle, especially for the beginning of this conversation, because I think there's a lot of people out there. You know, listen, I'm going to talk to a lot of fitness entrepreneurs. I'm going to talk to people that are in professional services. I'm going to talk to people that own, you know, manufacturing concerns. I don't know how much I'm going to touch into the show business, right? And I've watched you guys grow this brand over the last 4 or 5 years, maybe 6, depending on how long we've known each other. I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
And so I'm super interested in how that world is different. And you already hit on the fact that it's clearly not for money, but it's been super successful, at least from an outside observer's perspective. So give me an idea of when you first got into comedy and how that led you to, meeting up with Chris and eventually starting the show.
Sure. I think the groundwork was laid in grade school, very young, watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's such a good show, right? And some of those guys are still performing today, like Ryan Stiles and Colin Mockery. Like they still travel around and do improv. And so they're just some of like the smartest people in the world, like in my opinion. Maybe not smart in terms of knowledge, but just thinking quickly, thinking on the fly. And I just love Whose Line Is It Anyway as a kid. And we would like play these games in our, kitchens and living rooms, when we have sleepovers and stuff. And that just, kind of went away after a while in high school, started doing some sports and slowly got back into I started doing musical theater as a senior in high school, just on a whim.
Sure.
And in college, there was an improv team on campus. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This exists. I totally forgotten about it. So auditioned and got onto my college improv team and just loved it so much that as soon as I graduated, kind of explored, found, and got into this world of improv in the city of Philly, where I'm from. I've been living in Chicago now for 7 years, but primarily most of my life was in Philadelphia. And so it's this huge world of comedy and improv that maybe so many people don't know how deep the rabbit hole can go before you see, famous stand-up comedians or whatever. So I got really deep into it in Philly. And I was at a point where I was performing every Friday and every Saturday and getting paid to do so. Friday nights I was doing improv, short form improv, very similar to Whose Line Is It Anyway? Friday nights in Old City, Philadelphia, with the N crowd. That's the letter N, the N crowd. I don't really remember why we were called that, but they still perform. They've been around for almost 15, 16 years. And I was getting paid for those shows. And then Saturday nights, I was doing this sketch show at Urban Saloon called Bye Bye Liver. It was like a drinking sketch comedy show. I was getting paid, $50 a night for that. In the comedy world, most stuff, when you're not a name, you do shit for free. I'm sorry, I don't know if we can curse on this.
Oh yeah, we can say fuck, shit, whatever.
Heck yeah. So, and Philly is a big city, but it's not like Chicago. It's not like New York. So I didn't know how much of a small fish I was, but in Philly, I was feeling pretty good. I'm 22 years old. I think I'm kind of made it as far as Philly goes. I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's step our game up. So I move out to Chicago and then audition for the Second City Conservatory. If you wanted to right now, you could go and take classes at Second City, and that's anybody can do that. You pay for level A, learning how to play zip, zap, zop, and build a scene, whatever. But if you want to kind of advance or level up, you have to audition for their conservatory program. So audition for that. I actually lied on my resume because in order to audition for it, you have to have prerequisite training, and I had 0 training, but I just copied and pasted some training on my resume. They're not going to check that.
You found Chris Farley's resume somewhere.
Yeah, I feel wow, this guy's 300 pounds. They don't know. So got in, did that whole program. It was great. And after a year of this program, I'm like, all right, what's next? Am I going to be on the Second City main stage? And then I wasn't. And then I'm thinking, oh, wow, maybe I'm not as much of cream of the crop as I thought I was.
Well, before we go too much further, because first of all, I think, it's funny. I've never interviewed a comedian before, but I know the thing you're supposed to do is not ask them to be funny. but you're a very funny person, just hanging out with you and obviously I've gone to all the shows that you've thrown that you guys have put on since we've been here. Hilarious. The videos that we're going to actually put some links to and maybe even include one in this podcast are hilarious and really, really great. I think everybody listening probably is aware of what improv comedy is. But can you give me just kind of a quick breakdown of what is it that you're doing? If I went to go take a class, if I went to, how is it different than, say stand-up comedy where I'm standing up there with a microphone and I'm telling jokes?
Sure. So as far as I look at it, there's 3 buckets of comedy. You've got stand-up comedy where it's just you, man. You're coming up with every joke and you've got to grind that shit out for years because in the beginning you're going to bomb. I tried stand-up for 2 years and it was not good. And it's hard. It's a very sad scene because you got to earn your way through open mic nights. And so if you want to succeed at stand-up comedy, you have to have the thickest skin. You have to be super resilient. Like, okay, again, I'm not like an entrepreneur like you, but I think all stand-up comedians have kind of that piece in their brain, because you have to just keep trudging through awful long nights where people aren't even listening to you. They're only there so that they can work on their stuff and no one's laughing at you. But then eventually somebody likes your stuff, so they ask you to do a showcase. Anyway, I didn't do that route. But you get stand up, you get sketch, or it's a group of people. Everything's pre-written, so it's scenes, kind of like an SNL, Mad TV, Chappelle Show, that type of stuff, right? And then your other bucket is improv, where it's, again, a group of people, but nothing is pre-written. Mm-hmm. And so there's two branches off of improv. You've got short form improv, which is what most people know, like Whose Line Is It Anyway, where it's a very structured. We go, all right, we're going to play this game. And Jason, you're going to be the party host. And Matt and Nancy are going to be the party guests, but they've got a weird quirk and you have to guess what it is. And that's like hyper structured, very quick, fast, very jokey. The other side, which I find to be much more difficult and far more impressive when it's done well, is long form improv, where there might be a very loose format of scenes kind of building on top of each other, but it's all based off of generally one suggestion, either one word or somebody shouts out a phrase at the beginning of the show. The improvisers take that suggestion in, and that's all they get. Yeah. And you have to create a world, and you have to create characters and relationships and conflict and resolutions, all based on this one thing that you're all figuring out together. So it can be done very poorly, and it is very often because there's so much improv. But when it is executed really well, like I know you've seen this show. I know you've seen Middleditch and Schwartz.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, I
know. Yeah.
It's like we finish each other's things.
I'm sorry, what?
So Middleditch and Schwartz, it's really funny. And I'm trying to think of other really good long form improvisers. Like if you've ever heard of Improvised Shakespeare Company.
No, but that is a good example. The Middleditch one was very good. That's on Netflix. Donna and I watched it. And you're right. It's a high wire act, right? Like it is either the funniest thing you can't believe, because it's real, right? It's a lot like freestyle rap. If you really believe it's real in the moment, it's so much more impactful, right? But then it's really awful to watch because we're so empathetic. So it's like when we see somebody bombing, it's just like brutal to watch.
Oh, dude, it's so bad. Yeah. Like, bad improv. Bad improv is fun to do on purpose with other improvisers because there are certain rules, right? Like in improv, there are no rules, right? There are guidelines, and if you know them, you can break them. But there's like general rules for people who are new, right? Like, if you're on stage and you're trying to create this world, let's say like I am holding a coffee mug, right? Most people like will go, oh, and it's like, that's not how you drink coffee, right? You hold the handle and it goes closer to your lips, like little things you try to like envision. Yeah. But, anyway, that's kind of just like the three buckets. So you stand up, sketch, improv, then improv, you get the short form and the long form. And I did, short form and long form for many years. And then I had a string of shows where I was performing kind of on some independent teams here in Chicago. Uh-huh. And I thought I was generally pretty good at improv. And then I had a string of 3 shows back to back where I just absolutely just bombed. I, was not good. And I was like, recognize it in myself. And I'm like, man, I lost like my improv mojo, because there's certain things that no one gives a shit about when you're watching improv. Like one of them is called a transaction scene. Like if you're selling me something and I'm buying it, like who gives a shit, right? Like if I walk out on stage and I'm like, hi, how much for your strawberries? And you're like, they're $4. And I'm like, okay, thank you. It's like everyone watching that, it's like, that's the most boring shit ever. And I was doing things like that. And I would I would leave the show that night and go like, why am I still doing this? And so I wanted to take some time off. Maybe I'd come back to improv, but then I was like, you know what? I'm going to maybe get more into sketch. I think it's just a muscle that I don't flex enough and something I want to try to do. So just like posting Facebook statuses. This is, maybe like 5 years ago when Facebook was still a little bit more relevant. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You could have more interaction. I feel like Facebook is sort of dying a little bit. I know a lot of companies and small businesses use it for ads and things like that, but just think from a general user perspective, a lot of people are transitioning to Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Anyway, I would post Facebook statuses like, hey, I want to shoot this like video idea. I've got the camera, I got the location, just need extras, need actors. And, there's this one, it was a fitness parody video that I was making fun of like P90X and Insanity, all that stuff. It was called MegaFit 66S Plus. And I was like, just looking for people to be, in the workout video. And I was like the main instructor guy.
Yeah.
And this guy, Chris, who I did classes with at Second City, I was like, sure, man, I'll do it with you, among others. So after we finished the shoot, most people went home, but then him and this other guy, I was like feeling pretty good. I was like, that was fun. You guys want to go and have a beer? And like, we'll talk about it. That was great. We'll hang out. These two guys like, sure. So we go. And then Chris, my now comedy partner, I did not know this at the time, but he was going through some personal shit. He was like, depressed, and I'll get his permission retroactively to share this.
Yeah.
He's got their heart to make a breakup, just move across the country, feeling lonely in Chicago, all this stuff. And I think he just, was like glomming on to this, friendship that I was putting out there. And so then he was like, let's make more videos. And I was like, hell yeah, that's absolutely what I want to do. So we started making YouTube videos. And as we post them to YouTube, if you have no brand, if you have no name, you'll get 5 views.
Right.
Because who's watching them other than your friends? Nobody's like coming to you. So we're like, how do we get people to watch our YouTube videos? I know. Let's force them in a room and make them watch them. Oh, wait, that's literally just Chappelle's show. That's literally just Mad TV.
Right.
That's literally Key and Peele. Why don't we just do that? We'll reach back out to Second City because we're graduates of their conservatory program. We'll pitch them the show idea. It's just going to be our take on that, where we do pre-recorded sketches. And then in between each video, we come out on stage, we talk to the audience, maybe do some live stuff, whatever. And we pitched our show to them and they gave us a trial run. And that's really where it kind of picked up. And that's where the Chris and Matt show was born. Just kind of like a storm of events all happening.
So first of all, that's super interesting. I've never quite heard that explained quite that way. But also, if you know how to get people to listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos, I could really use the hand because we have not yet launched. So, so I'll be looking for any advice I can get there. But seriously, knowing you both, and for the record, you're a pretty humble guy, but I've been to your shows. I've been to probably the last 5 or 6, if I had to guess, and they're all sold out every week. They've been super fun. You're somebody, it's interesting because every time I talk to you, I feel likable and smart. And I think the reason is part of it's you, but you're a good listener, and like you're a generous conversationalist. And I think that must come in part from doing the comedy stuff. Do you think that's any truth to that?
Yeah, that's, wow, really nice of you to say. So I think a huge part about what makes someone successful, specifically as it relates to improv, is you have to be able to receive information and process it really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say if you and I were doing a scene together and you come out and you say like, well, hey, son, we've got to go out for the harvest today. And I'm like, shut up, Dr. Lafitte. We got to go to skateboard camp. And It's just like, the people are watching are like, did he not listen? Because he just called him son. So we assume he's his dad, right? So it's like, you have to listen to your partner to then basically you're laying a brick. If you look at an improv scene, like we're building a house together, every line of dialogue that is laid out is a new brick. And if you just say, hey, son, we got to get up early tomorrow for the harvest, boom, you just laid a brick. And if I lay a brick on top of that says, shut up, Mr. Astronaut Man, that doesn't tie in with what you said, our house is going to crumble, excuse me. Right. So, yeah, I think the listening thing is, again, very, very nice of you to say. I think a thing that I did not like about myself when I was younger was not listening, just like always focusing on, I think a lot of people have this problem too, is most people are just waiting for their turn to speak. Yep. And so they're not listening. They're just nodding their head and pretending they're listening to you and just want to say the one thing that they're holding in their head. And I still do that from time to time. We all do, right? But I think to be good in live comedy, you have to be in the moment and receptive to, okay, even if there is something in the back of my head that I know I want to say, I have to be willing to drop that if something new comes in. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of truth to that.
Yeah. And I'm definitely the same way. I have no training in improv, but I definitely grew up and continue to catch myself waiting to speak. Literally while you're talking, I'm nodding, thinking about what I was going to say next.
What am I going to say?
But I will tell you that as I've gotten older and as I've done more coaching, worked with entrepreneurs, managed a team of people like you, I've found that there's been so many little opportunities that were missed because I was waiting to speak. And I've just found more and more, the more I seek outside, like listening to people as opposed to just taking action, it's made me quicker at taking action in the right course of action.
I mean, it's just like in CrossFit, right? Like if you're not working on what you're bad at, you're never going to improve. And I think that's so funny. I actually wanted to give you a compliment because I think the whole idea behind Spear and Clover is, talking to people who trudge like very not fast, but like directly towards the things that they're passionate about, not forgetting to explore the ideas around that, but always keeping their eyes on the goal and going in that direction. And I think something that you said, because I listened to your episode with Billy Jones, really cool.
Sweet. Yeah.
And I think one thing that you even said this about yourself, you've always called yourself an evangelist for the things that you like. So the things that you are passionate about, you want to tell everybody about it. You want to get them on board. And if they don't, that's fine. But like, you want to share the things that you love. And I think I like to as well, but in a different way or different manner than you do. But I think the thing with you is very often, if you're excited about something, it's like, no one's going to get a word in because you're going to tell me every little specification of this thing. But as I'm listening to your episode with Billy Jones, I just think the economy or the shared, airspace of, you asking him questions or him responding. Like, I think you did a really, really good job of, I think you're just really good at, when you need to turn it on, you're also a good listener when you want to be, is what I'm saying.
Well, I appreciate that. Certainly I would love to bask in each other's mutual appreciation for the rest of this.
5 minutes of us just like jerking each other off.
But truthfully, so there is a little nugget though that I pulled out from what you just said. And I think that it goes a lot towards, you described a very good description of what Spear and Clover kind of stands for. And that is, so here we have Chris, who's just moved from another place. He's feeling down in the dumps. He's just been broken up with, and he meets Matt. Here we have Matt, who was kind of feeling like a high roller, came to Chicago and maybe didn't find the immediate success that he thought he would in the comedy world. And instead of not doing something, you guys decided to do something more audacious, more big, and more towards your passions. I just think that's so interesting. There's so many opportunities for you to roll over or for you to settle for something else. You could have been, not that your job now is settling, but you could have been an executive recruiter 10 years ago. You could have been a pharmaceutical sales rep. You have that personality. You're a tall, fit, good looking man. But you could have done those things, or you could have checked out way earlier. And so when you guys were struggling, you guys chose to pick up a heavier load, take a bigger shot. And I just think that's such a telling thing about the two of you guys. Did it feel that way at the time, or did it just feel like what you had to do?
It's really interesting to hear you say that, and kind of like going back and analyzing how it's like coming from Philly, thinking I'm a hotshot, moving out here, doing the conservatory program, thinking I'm great. And then all of a sudden be like, wow, maybe I am a nobody. I didn't, and that's kind of a low point. Man, Chris having his low point, then us, from there, kind of trying to rise up again. And I don't really think we viewed it as that. It was just, we like doing this thing. Mm-hmm. And we both know that comedy as an aspiration, whether as a hobby or to try to make it your career, is one of the most competitive industries. I think so many people look at like Saturday Night Live as like the goal. There's many people that don't, right? Maybe people just want to do, stand up, or maybe people want to do movies or, be on a comedy sitcom or whatever. But like so many people who move to cities like New York or Chicago or LA, or whatever, like want to be on SNL. I know when I was 22 years old, that was my dream. And, even to this day, I love it. Right. But how many spots are there? The cast is huge right now. And even so, it's like 20 slots for how many people in the world, so it's an extremely competitive environment. And it's not like there's a formula for it either, right? It's not like in the corporate world, if you do X, Y, and Z and you work hard, you show up and you're polite, you close deals, or you work overtime, you'll move up. And eventually, if you wanted to become a chief financial officer at some fucking schmuck company, like let's just call it PJ Morgan, you probably could, right? You could quit whatever you're doing right now and go, and you could do that in the next 5 years. I guarantee it. But in comedy, like you could want it so hard and put in the hours and market yourself and perform and do whatever you can. But if you are not funny or likable, you're out of luck. You also could be the funniest person, but if you don't have the right work ethic, you're not. Also, you could have the funniest personality. You could be super talented and work really hard and still not make it, because you've got to be the right type, or you got to be seen by the right people. There's just there's no right way to make it. And, there's no wrong way either. It's just if you want to do it, in my mind, it's like, I'm just never going to stop trying to perform and create, because if I never reach traditional success or fame or whatever, I'm okay with that, because doing this makes me happy. And I hope I'm 60 years old and still, writing or something, and if I make it somehow, make it whatever that means for different people, like, that'd be amazing. But
so I'm not somebody that believes in like participation trophies, but I do think there's something to you going after the way that this makes you feel, as opposed to the way that it makes other people feel. Not just laughing, but like the validation externally of somebody hiring you for a show, or, booking you in a big venue or whatever it may be. I'm watching you guys be successful, but certainly with COVID, there's every reason to not continue with, the changes in the landscape of whatever, we've spoken about the theater landscape changing a little in Chicago. And so for you guys to continue to do it, seems like I'm watching you and Chris too. You guys go and get a cabin in the woods somewhere and film a bunch of sketches not that long ago. Like, that's you guys saying like, hey, I like doing this thing. I miss doing this thing. It's an outlet for me. And I think we can do something that people will like. I think there's something to you just enjoying doing it. But that being said, I had a question for you. You were talking about, kind of the two sides of the spectrum of who won't make it, right? Like the people, if you're just not funny and you're just not likable, you're not going to make it. And if you don't work hard enough, or if you're not seen by the right people, you might not make it. Have you ever known anybody who was not that funny work hard and become funny? Or have you ever known anybody who was crazy funny and just didn't get it, who made it still?
Okay, totally. And I think a lot of this is subjective, right? Because humor is not it's not a measurable thing. Like, I could find something super bland and you could be like, that guy's the funniest, whatever. Yeah. So I think here's an interesting example. Do you know who Tim Robinson is?
I do. Oh, so, Tim Robinson?
Yes, Tim Robinson. Yes. Tim.
Remind me.
Okay, so there is this fantastic sketch show on Netflix right now called I Think You Should Leave.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's Tim Robinson.
Got it.
It is currently one of my favorite things just in sketch comedy, especially on a major streaming platform. Me and my friends quote it constantly.
Yeah.
And Tim was on SNL for one season. And I remember watching him on SNL. He was a featured player his first year. He'd be like, this guy sucks. Like, how did he get on SNL? He's not funny. He's like weird looking. Like, he's like, they don't write anything good for him. And he didn't last and he got cut. And it's like, shit, man. I'm looking at myself like, if that guy can get on, like, why can't, like, what's wrong with me? And he just wasn't utilized the right way.
Right.
We put his talent in a different perspective where he's not, limited to, there's probably a lot of like creative restrictions on SNL, like, oh, our fans aren't going to like this, or this is not what we represent. And now he's just absolutely insane and wacky. And what they produce, and I Think You Should Leave, I'm like, wow, that is genius. That is where, he needed to flourish. So I think a lot of times maybe it's, wrong place, wrong time, or creative differences.
Sure.
I'm gonna name drop somebody that nobody on here is gonna know, and if this guy listens to it, that'd be awesome. But there's a guy I know. His name is Jordan Wilson, and he's in the Chicago comedy community, and he is one of the funniest guys I know. And this guy works so hard. Like, I think he's got a lot of followers on TikTok. I think he's got like a pretty good Instagram following as well. And
do you know what his Instagram or TikTok are? Just so
I think it's at Jordan freaking Wilson.
Got it.
I think that's what it is. And he's just so funny. And like, I'm waiting for this dude to blow up. Like, there was a time, you might actually know who I'm talking about, because there was a time last year when this was pre-vaccine, prime COVID. A lot of people were still kind of scared to go out, do things. Like, some people weren't, but some people were. And me and my comedy partner, Chris, weren't really out there like doing stuff, because I think he was being more careful and wanted to stay home more. And I wanted to create, so I was like, listen, man, I'm never stopping Chris and Matt, but I'm going to go do my own thing for now, just to kind of keep the juices flowing. Mm-hmm. And I did a side project called The Lamsonian. And there was a sketch that I did in The Lamsonian where I worked with him. And he was like the owner of an ice cream shop where we did a parody on like Jenny's ice creams. It was called just Josh's Ice Cream. And I'm so happy that I have something that exists online with that guy, because it's just like super funny. When I can put, when he makes it one day, I can be like, oh yeah, I did a thing with this guy. Yeah. But like, yeah, it's just, it can go so many different ways. And I think there's something that you mentioned earlier that I want to kind of revisit, where maybe this is going to sound the most humble I never try to like brag too much about what we do, because I still don't think we've gone like crazy overboard or like super famous, obviously, right? Like very minimal following, but I'm really, really proud of what we've done. I think Chris and I have this awesome like middle ground of like, we're not going to be the funniest people in the world. Like I would never compare myself to like, the greats, like a Farley or Tina Fey, like some of the best people in comedy, right? I think we are talented and funny, but I think our work ethic is awesome. And so if you look at the first show we ever did at Second City, I look back and it was not great. I look back and I go, it was a great first show, but a lot of things didn't land, or we were still finding our voice. And over the past, we've done 7 shows now. One of them was virtual in the pandemic, but 6 at Second City. And by the last show, you're 100% right. We sold out every single night at the Second City Training Center. The studio theater is called the DeMott Studio Theater. And it can hold maybe like 70-ish people. They were like pulling chairs in because like, it was overselling. And we even had like agents come from like different like talent agencies in Chicago. Like one had just straight up invited us to go audition for them. Another came and watched our show. And like, that was just huge. It felt like 3 years of just working hard and building up this buzz and like honing our talent. And we finally like, we're like hitting this stride. Mm-hmm. And then boom, the pandemic came, and there'd be another perfect time for us to just be like, all right, well, it would be easier to stop. It would be easier to just like go to work 9 to 5 and be like, oh, it was hard, I didn't make it. But like, I don't want to ever do that. And we actually just pitched our next show to The Annoyance, which many people might not know, but like the 3 big theaters in Chicago were the Second City. Everybody knows Second City. Then there was IO, mm-hmm. which unfortunately closed its doors forever, in the pandemic. And then the third kind of player, the underdog, so to speak, was The Annoyance, which is like mm-hmm. awesome theater. Just if you are not in comedy, not as many people know the brand. But that's like, now that IO is gone, Second City is run by I think it got bought out by a private equity company, new management. Haven't really been opening the doors to people like us just yet. We're like, great, like Annoyance is like blowing up. I mean, it always was like big, and a lot of people have come through that have gone on to do great things, but now it's like Annoyance is the place to be. And so we just pitched our show to them. They're reviewing our show pitch right now. If it gets accepted, we'll probably get back on stage next Chris and Matt show as soon as April. And like, that has me so jazzed up to finally like get back live on stage.
Yeah. So, and that's amazing. I can't wait to see that. I'll definitely make the trip back in to see that for sure. Because it's funny, as a viewer, I don't really see a huge difference, between people that are famous and when I go to one of your shows. I really don't. I think you guys are really funny. And we're going to drop a clip of one of your sketches in here that you can choose after this. So we'll drop that in there as if it was like a commercial break or whatever. Because we're not going to like fake react to it or anything. But do you think so? You hear about guys like Phil Hartman, or you hear about people like Rodney Dangerfield that, Rodney Dangerfield was a siding salesman for 30 years. And I think he was 48 or something before he made his first stand-up special. And he's one of the greatest stand-up comedians of all time. And obviously a terrific comedic actor. Phil Hartman, I think, was in his 40s before he broke. Do you think that it's taste? Do you think that it's hard work? I know the answer is probably a combination. But, do you think what do you think Phil Hartman says if you talk to him when he's 34?
It's so funny because I literally just rewatched Jingle All the Way
sure.
2 weeks ago.
Me too. Yeah.
It's such a bad movie, but it is so enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
He's so great, man. I don't know what Phil Hartman would say. I think you kind of had it right, though. Like, of all these things you're listing, it's a combination. Like, I don't know if this is the right phrase, but it's like, you ever heard the phrase like last person on the bus?
No.
So I think the idea is like, let's say me and everybody else that wants to make it in acting and comedy, whatever, we all get on a bus, and it's a bumpy bus ride, right? You're getting rejected. You got to put in the work, and so people start getting off the bus, and just the longer you stay on the bus, the fewer people there are, and the better you get at riding the bus. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a part of it where we're like, hey man, just if we quit, then we'll never make it. Now we could stay on the bus forever and never make it, but we know that we'll never make it if we get off the bus.
Yeah, Alex Hormozy always talks about that. Basically, like life is a game that doesn't end, or business is a game that only ends if you quit, right?
Yeah.
And if you just keep going, I mean, I can definitely identify with that from a business perspective of, there were dark days, at the gym. There were dark days in every business that I've been a part of, and literally just learning that I can just show up tomorrow. I don't care if there's a letter from the bank. I don't care if the landlord sent me something. I don't care if the bank account is negative. I don't care if all these things that could be going wrong. I don't care if nobody showed up or whatever it may be. And the worst outcome in your business, I've definitely seen multiple times. And I think we have a pretty good turnaround story in my business, but I've seen multiple stories like that where it's like, Billy Jones, you mentioned earlier, the guy's, riding his bike and delivering DoorDash. And then like 6 months later is buying his wife a Tesla. Like it absolutely is about, attrition and sticking with it. I think too, there's, the stories about Phil Hartman are that he was the guy like you're talking about, though, where everybody that knew him knew he was brilliant, right? Yeah. So maybe part of that is just, you do you, right? You do the thing that you're doing. You try to do it as well as you possibly can. Like, I don't think, you may not be Tina Fey, but there is no other, Matt Lamson, right? So like be the best Matt Lamson that you can be and continue to get up and put yourself out there. I'm sure, you will get the success that you are looking for if you're looking for the right type of success. Today's show is brought to you by High Level CRM. High Level is an all-in-one platform designed to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses without the need for multiple softwares or an IT team. Not only does their easy-to-use software allow you to track and manage your leads throughout each phase of the relationship, but it also allows you to build funnels, track stats, and more. Guys, I sat down and added up the cost of software I was able to replace with just one app, and it was over $1,000 per month. Because this is an all-in-one application, I also save a ton of headaches connecting apps and building automations, and the team at Go High Level does a great job of getting you started quickly and easily when you sign on. I cannot more highly recommend these guys. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners get a free 14-day trial of High Level CRM for themselves. Click the link in our show notes to support the show and get started on your free 14-day trial today. Today's show is brought to you by Scaling with Media. I mean, literally, like if it weren't for the folks at Scaling with Media, you would not be getting this. Scaling with Media is a truly revolutionary company for any entrepreneur who wants to reach a larger audience without taking on the years of experience necessary to master the required skills. These guys do it all. From helping you develop your creative plan to editing, sourcing content, copywriting, ads management, and way more. Whether you're looking to launch a YouTube channel or podcast, or you just want to scale your business out to more eyeballs, these guys are the absolute best one-stop shop. But that's not all. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners who sign up for their brand launch package will receive a free, that's right, free professional grade studio kit that I'm actually recording right now on. The studio kit includes a professional microphone, stand, lighting, and headphones, and is worth well over $500. Take action now by going to scalingwithmedia.com/spear and claim your free studio kit. Again, that's scalingwithmedia.com/spear, scalingwithmedia.com/spear. Now back to the show.
So you just said something that, like, as a kid, I admired people who were unlike me. Very, I think I sound very like even keel right now. I guess we're doing this podcast. I'm not being wacky or whatever, but like, when you and I get together and have a couple of beers or whatever, sure, like you get weird. And so I think one thing I admired when I was young was people who like a James Bond type, like very just like quiet, cool, mysterious, serious, whatever. And like, I was like, man, like it would be so cool if I was like that. And I think that's not something I still idolize, because it's like, no, like there's no other Matt Lamson. And so if I can just lean in as hard as possible to my personal brand and just crank that dial up to an 11, like that's the secret. Like be the most you that you can, because there's only one you, right? So you're talking about how like applying some of these comedy concepts to like entrepreneurs and business and things like that.
Sure.
And you're talking about dark days with the gym and just like, hey, if you just keep going, like you will figure it out. And I think like it'd be so easy, right, to just like, oh man, like we didn't turn a profit this month, or they're turning our lights off, whatever. It'd be easier to quit and try something else. I think the same totally applies for what me and Chris do, because there's so much where like we'll work so hard on something and like, oh man, like, this video is going to go viral. It's so funny. And then you post it and 2 months go by and you're like, it has 40 views. What the fuck? Or like, you know, you go out on an audition for something and you get a call back and you're like, this role is mine. And then like, sorry, we went with somebody else. Or, you know, this agency, I still very much admire them. They're called Big Mouth Talent. They were the one that invited me to go audition for them. And, you know, I went out and this is my first like big like agency audition. And I did a monologue from Breaking Bad. It's like a pretty cool monologue of Jesse Pinkman talking about this wooden box that he made. Yeah. You remember that scene?
I do. Yeah.
And I think I did an okay job. And, you know, they're like, thank you for your time. And then I got an email a couple of days later just saying, hey, like, we appreciate you, but we already have your type. And so they're just profiling you, like the way you look, the way you say whatever. It's like, oh, man, like, what the fuck? You know, like, I'm not mad at them, but you just like think it can be demoralizing, right? It's like keep putting yourself out there creatively and then like you hearing no and no and no. So it's not like, you know, I'm going to be out on the street, out of a job, not be able to eat, whatever like that. But like so many times it'd be easier to just stop doing comedy because hearing no less, you know, doesn't hurt as bad, you know? So,
yeah, that's interesting. So you talk about if you were to quit comedy, you wouldn't hear no as much, but that brings me to another question, which is if you quit your job and tried to make a living only doing comedy, shows, acting, do you believe you could do it?
God, that is like the hardest question. And I've clearly made it my choice to not do that, you know, because I don't know how long I would be able to last. You know, like I think I've gotten accustomed to a lifestyle that I'm just unwilling to throw away.
Sure.
You know, like
I see the dartboard. We all see the dartboard.
Oh, this baby that cost me $49.99. Yeah, I'd have to give up the dartboard, man. So I don't know, like the fact that I think my biggest flaw is that I think I can do it all. I think, you know,
I think that's my biggest strength.
Maybe it's just, I don't know. Depending on who's listening or who you talk to, like maybe call that white privilege or like or whatever. But like I think like I was raised an only child, right? So I had all this love and attention. I'm very, very lucky with two parents who like did an awesome job. Like I'm so thankful. And like as a kid, I was one of those kids where my mom was like, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up, you know? Yeah. And just like very supportive. So I think like, and I believe in myself to a degree where I'm just like, well, fuck it, man. Like, why can't I like have this career where I have my nights and weekends free and it's a flexible schedule so that I can pursue comedy on the side. And knowing that comedy is such a big risk that like, if it doesn't work out, at least I'm going to have this amazing life that I can have at the same time. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, how many people do that choice? Say, you know what? I'm going to go live out of a van and, you know, maybe I'll eat ramen for 3 years and all I'm going to do is comedy. And it's like, I think sometimes people can put that concept on a pedestal where it's like, listen, man, if you just go all in, like it'll work. But how many people does that work for? And so I think I've become okay with like going, God, maybe it's the wrong way to look at it. Like 50%, you can never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. But like, it's a.
I don't know. You know, this isn't like a coaching session, but I don't think that. I don't think that. I know you, and I know your choices, and I know we've spoken as they've happened, right? I don't think that you're half-assing things. I think. Bubbly is killing it today.
How many have I had so?
Yeah. Hit me up because I don't have a monetization model for this podcast. So listen, I don't think that you've never struck me as somebody who would throw it all away to like go live in a van and pursue comedy and eat ramen. For the record though, I've had 3 podcasts where these 3 things have happened. 1, Matt and Jen Rhodes ate nothing but peanut butter and jelly for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a year. 2, Billy Jones, you know, I don't know the order these are going to come out in, was a drug dealer out of desperation. And then I had another person who was a stripper, a male stripper, to try and make the dreams come true. So for sure it can happen. And all 3 of those folks are doing great with their businesses now. Listen, the intent of that question was not to prompt you to quit your job, which is great, and you're awesome at, to go pursue comedy. More my question, I'm still trying to figure out, and this is something that, you know, you're bearing the brunt of the fact that you're the first comedian that I've interviewed. Hopefully not the last.
Hopefully your second is Bert Kreischer, so then I can be like, yeah, I got on before Bert.
Did I tell you he's the only person I reached out to that's famous? Yeah, he's the only guy I reached out to.
It's you,
we'll get him. We'll get him eventually. We'll become we have to become undeniable first.
When you get Bert, you have to call me and go, we got Bert.
We got Bert. Yeah, that's pretty funny. So either way, it's more this thing, because I'm sort of fascinated with that. Like, could I be a professional baseball player, you know, if I had just focused on being a professional baseball player when I was 19 or whatever? I don't know. You know, how much of it is talent? How much of it is hard work and commitment? How much of it is burning the fucking ships, which is a flag that I have right there. I have the pirate burn the ships flag up. I don't know. And maybe you don't know either, but it's refreshing, certainly, to watch you and to watch Chris and to watch other people that we know continue to pursue their passions. So, you know, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it is both exciting. Like you say, it's your biggest strength. I kind of said it's my biggest flaw. Like the concept of like, I'm very capable. I believe I can do everything and anything. And I think I like doing too many things. Okay. And so if I were to quit my career and just say, screw it, I'm going to live, you know, like paycheck to paycheck, just literally spending a minimal amount of time to make an income so that I can have most of my time put towards creation and towards this comedy endeavor, I don't think I would be as happy. And because there are just certain things in life that you forfeit if you lead that lifestyle. And I like being able to, like, I'm in a position now where like I could go wherever I want and I have the means to do that, or I can do anything I want. You know, I'm just like little shit, right? Like if you want to go.
You win every day. I watch you, you win. You go out and you win. And really, there's certain things that you can do from desperations. Saving, you have rent that's due, you need more clients, you got to go out and find new leads. That's something you can do with your back to the wall. I don't know if be funny is something that you can do with your back against the wall necessarily. I don't know. I'm not a comedian, but.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. And I'm sure there are situations that would come up that would be so funny, or just, you know, the life you lead if you're, you know, pouring your heart and soul into that. But yeah, I think a lot about what is nice is that I never have the creative juices like forced. Like I've got to do something now. No timeline. There's no pressure. And so I think a huge thing about just when you're not in comedy, I get this shit all the time. Like every time I go home for Christmas, or people just find, oh, you're a comedian, tell us a joke. It's like, that's not what I, people are like, oh, how do you come up with this stuff? You know? And it's like, there's no formal process, right? It's just like, you recognize things that are humorous, and then you try to decipher, is this something that is funny right now in this moment, or is this something that's replicatable? And there's way too often something that comes up that's just situationally funny. And like, you know, it'll be like your mom or your dad, and they're like, oh, wow, you got to put this in one of your routines. And it's like, no, like, this is just something that is very specific to us right now. And that's, I think, what a lot of people who don't do comedy, don't have that, you know, part of their brain, have trouble recognizing, like, okay, this is something that can appeal to the mass. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, right? How much content have I created that hasn't blown up, you know? And there's certain things that are widely appreciated by what we've done, but that, you know, that's the hard thing. Is just like, there's never like pressure from me, like, man, like if I don't come up with this thing now, like I'm done. It's like, oh yeah, this is funny. Let me write this down. Let me pitch it to Chris, and let's put it in the next show. So it's just kind of like, while it's something that I would love to have be a full-time job, like, oh man, don't get me wrong, if there was pressure to write a weekly sketch for SNL, that would be fucking awesome. Yeah. But like, you know, it's just something that can kind of come and go whenever it comes to, like, you know, I've got a notepad on my phone of things that are like, okay, just that thing, have I got to write that down? And not all of it is great, but you know, it's just,
you know, you say it's SNL. I think that's funny because I don't think I'm alone in saying that their hit rate's not 100%. You know, and the pressure of 1 week to write a sketch that's topical and funny to everybody, you know, they're not hitting a batting 1,000, man. So even at the highest level, they're not. And I think the other thing too is, what were we gonna say?
No, I'm agreeing with you. And that I think SNL is interesting because there's still, I think, a core following base that loves it and idolizes. Even the bad sketches, you accept them because excuse me, I got the bubbly
Part
burps.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, pardon me. The things that are good, you love. And I think it's just, it's an institution. And so, I mean, with that, there's still so many people who are like, SNL sucks. Like, you know, it was so much better when Will Ferrell was like, you're going to have people who have different opinions. But yeah, you know, not everything is going to be 100%. If you have
I've heard it said that everybody likes the SNL cast that they were a senior in high school for, or they were in middle school. It's because that's who it's fucking for, right? And now maybe not. Now I feel like it maybe is a little more. It's always been a political show, and this is not a political show, but I think maybe now it's influenced more by political forces, whereas it used to be more of a radical politicalized show. Anyway, the question I wanted to ask you also, or mention one point I wanted to make also, is the thing about people like me or your mom or, you know, the guy at the bus stop that are like, be funny, or why aren't you should put this in your act. We see you doing what you do, and it seems so easy, right? And we don't, I'm telling you, every time I talk to you, I feel like I'm funnier. Every time, and you don't realize it unless you look at it. And it's not just me. We've been on trips together. We've spent many, many hours together around other amazing people, and everybody's cracking jokes around Matt. And I think part of that is like, they don't realize it, but it's you listening and giving feedback, and your face. Like, I can start a sentence, and the way you look at me will make me finish the sentence differently than I might have, right? And so I think there's something to be said about, like, you know, what you're doing is talking, in some cases moving, though not all. And so it seems like, oh, I can do that. Like this podcast thing. It feels like, oh, I can do a podcast, and fuck, man, we have not yet, as we record this, I have not yet released this out to the world for anybody. So who knows? But when it's, you know, you're not operating on, you know, horses or, you know, moving machinery around. So it's like, oh, he's just talking and being funny. I've been funny with my friends before.
Yeah, that's so funny. I think that comes back to literally what we said 5 minutes ago, specific to you, right? You saying, I think I can do anything. You know, when you hang out with me, or, you know, even like a Brian McCann at the gym who does comedy, or
shout out to Brian McCann. So you're doing the comedy as the side hustle. This is definitely, I think I'm just going to call these types of episodes like the side hustle edition. Sure. Because this is what you do. I almost think that's purer than people that are full-time entrepreneurs. You know, don't get me wrong, I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I'm definitely, it's in my blood, but
a purist. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I agree. But in your other jobs, so you work for Lucas Group, you're a managing partner at an executive recruiting company, which is a fancy way to say you place people in high-level jobs. Yeah. You know, I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about that, but I do think, you know, do you find that you are influenced from your personal experience when you try to place people? In other words, do you try to make sure that they're passionate? How do you find out if somebody's passionate about what you're hiring them to do? Or even a follow-up to that would be, do you find that it matters in corporate gigs?
Yeah. I was just about to say, great question, Jason. And it is a good question, but it's something that I find, because, you know, I'm like interviewing people, and not even like hard drilling. Like, my job is just trying to make sure like I'm connecting the dots, right? Like, if a company is looking for somebody who has like X, Y, and Z in their background, you know, and maybe if something doesn't jump off the page on their resume, you know, how many direct reports have they had? You know, what's the revenue responsibility they've managed? What's the, you know, geographic territory? Well, whatever it could be that doesn't jump off the page. I've got to ask questions. And there's very often I'll ask a very surface level question, just like, hey, how you doing today? And they'll be like, Matt, great question. I am doing very good. And it's just like, they're just so ingrained to tell me my questions are good to make me feel good.
Yeah.
But anyway, to answer your question, how do you find out if somebody is passionate about what I'm recruiting for? It's all bullshit. I hope nobody in my company listens, because it's not all bullshit, but like, I want to give you a couple examples. There was one time, I won't drop the brand name, but I was working with a big brand in batteries. You know, you figure out which one it was. You know, if you open up your TV remote, there's only a couple different brands of batteries you're going to have in there. I was working with one of those companies.
Zenith.
I'm going to not agree or disagree.
I was trying to think of a now defunct company. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can just keep going and going if we want on this. Hint, hint. It wasn't them, but
got it.
So I was working with this battery. It was not Energizer. A big question I have to ask them is like, why would anybody want to come take this job? Like, you know, we're going to go find people who are happy in their current roles and try to get them to leave their company to come work for you. Like, how do we sell this opportunity for you? And it's batteries, man. Like, who gives a shit? It's fucking batteries. But they'll be so excited to like pitch their shit because they're all up their own ass about it. And they're like, we are disrupting the consumer power space. Yeah. And it's just like, no, you're not. You fucking make batteries. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard because a lot of it is so fluffy, but I really do like when people give me good answers. You know, when you can tell when somebody's actually excited about what they do and their company, or about what the opportunity is. And then on the other side, I think it's more about like, will this person work well with this person? Because who gives a shit about, you know, the next offshore, you know, oil rig? Like, nobody cares about this company, right? It's not like, you know, what you're doing is cool. What we do is cool, but like, there's so much stuff in the world that like is just whatever. It's industrial manufacturing. How sexy can that be, right? Like, we make linear ball bearings. You go to bed at night going like, oh man, I can't wait to make the new one that's a millimeter bigger. Like, no one cares, you know?
Yeah.
When you really get down to it, and let's say you're interviewing somebody, because we always got to find out, hey, you're the VP of sales at this, you know, $2 billion medical supply company, whatever. Like, why did you take a call from a recruiter to potentially leave your company? And they start off by saying, Matt, it's a great question. And then they go, you know, and they say whatever they say, man, I got a new boss and I don't like this person, or we just got acquired, so I might lose my job, or like whatever their reason is. But a lot of times they go, you know, I've been in this role for, you know, 5 years, and I kind of feel like I'm at the top. And, you know, maybe this sounds like a bigger company, more responsibility. And what I like doing is I like coaching people that pass, you know, 6 regional sales managers I've managed have moved on to become directors or moved laterally into a different function. And so that's like, okay, cool. This person is obviously really sharp. They like grooming people. They have a valid reason for looking. And we say, all right, this opportunity, you'll have that and then some. So it's really more about like, it's not about like, hey, are you passionate about going to work for, you know, a financial services company? It's more about what is the opportunity, and do you have like the experience needed, but then are you going to be happy in what this role will have you doing every day? So it literally is like corporate dating, right? Because it's like, okay, we've got this attractive person, we got this attractive person. Will they date? Not always, right? It's about like the soft parts of their personality. Like, do you like doing this? Do you like doing that? Or, you know, it's really, I really relate what I do to like corporate matchmaking all the time. So
it's so funny, you know, to hear you talk about it. And there was a lot in there, and, you know, we're getting towards, you know, the length that we kind of need to be, but so I won't go too far in depth. But the thing that I took away and that I definitely identify with is this corporate speak. It's almost like there's a film over everything, everybody, every way that they speak. And it's so interesting to me because there is a question here. I can't get on a phone in my former business and in all the businesses that I've owned and that I've worked for. I get on a call with somebody. I can't go 5 words into a conversation without going, oh God, oh no, that's not even the person that I'm talking to. Right. And I think the funny thing is, you know, if you're in a corporate role and you allow yourself to be fully like coated in that corporate veil, right? Or that film or whatever you want to call that, you actually won't be as successful. It's the thing it's the authenticity that I can tell within 3 words of somebody. You know, we had a call with a sales company that was promising to, you know, double or triple our sales. They're going to do some they're going to bring on a sales team for us and do this, you know, take on this big responsibility. It was an expensive project. There was a ton of training involved. These guys were industry leaders, right? We got on the first like exploratory phone call, and I told my partner, Joey, I was like, we can't work with these guys. This is absolutely not, these are not our kind of guys. They were, well, I'm Chuck and I'm Larry. And if we're going to have to go golfing. I mean, it was so much bullshit. Like 100% of people that speak English fluently would have gone into this conversation and gone like, oh, that's not really those people. You're not even speaking to those people. They're reading from a script that they've memorized, right? Yeah. And I think that the shame of it all is I think that actually kills productivity and unique businesses and opportunity. What it does is it protects your job maybe, and maybe it, you know, secures, oh, these guys feel like a warm bath. I'll sign the contract with them, which we ultimately did. You know, it was our choice to sign the contract with them, and we stopped the bleeding quickly, but it was an expensive lesson. And so, you know, with that said, how long into a conversation before you know somebody's full of shit or not?
Oh, like almost immediately.
Right? And I feel like everybody is that way. So why do people keep doing it?
Well, I think, okay, you ready for this? Oh man, this is so good. I'm going to bridge both worlds, right? So much like improv and what we're talking about right now, you have to know the rules before you can break them. So I think
that's right.
Understanding that in corporate America, there's this language, right? Like if you do X, Y, and Z, say X, Y, and Z, you will ascend. But like if you just like overdo it and you're the type of person who's like, oh, hey, well, I'll ping you later. Let's circle back on that. I can't wait to, get our marching orders for this team. And like all that, like just the bullshit phrases that like everyone loves to make fun of. You see them all on social media. Sure. Like it's so pervasive now to make fun of corporate lingo. Thank God. I think it's something that's slowly dying out, but everyone has traces of it. But if you understand the language of corporate America, it's so much easier to pick and choose what to say and when to say. So like same thing with improv, you have to know how to play the game to then be able to work around the rules and do whatever you want.
Bro, that you nailed it. Because I immediately think of a few people who've been very successful that I know in a corporate space. And they're definitely, maverick types, but they're really good fundamentally they were particularly one banker I worked with was kind of a jerk, and he didn't do any of the things that all of the people below him were held accountable to. But he knew where he like you said, if everybody's expected to say X, Y, and Z, he knew when it was opportune to say X, Y, and B or whatever. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's a really insightful point. And I thank you, Matt, for making it today on our podcast.
Oh, anytime. And for everyone listening too, you're just very welcome.
So 2 questions that I ask everybody. I'm excited to hear your answers. First question is, if you had access to unlimited capital or cash, what would you do to grow? I'm talking about Chris and Matt's show.
Oh yeah.
Chris and Matt. What would you do to grow that business?
This is the easiest question. Are you kidding me? So I have unlimited capital?
Yeah.
Now, like, am I allowed to use this capital to like feed myself and house myself while I work on this? Or does
Totally.
Oh, then are you kidding me? This would be amazing. I think I would, obviously, quit my job, right? Because I've got unlimited capital. I think I would turn one of my rooms in my apartment into like a creative studio. So like I would probably set up one wall as a full-on green screen and just have it permanently set up with, a ring light camera. And then, every day, just, try to do something. And like the Jerry Seinfeld thing, right? Like he wrote one joke a day, and not every joke is going to be a hit, but someday you're like, oh man, this one's really good. So same thing, just like, honestly, I would probably try to make a structure out of it, or if not a structure, just like, all right, a goal for every day. Like I'll wake up, what's a stupid idea I have, whether it's filming something or like writing something or reaching out to another comedian to be like, hey, what's something that you thought of lately we can collaborate on? Like just, turn every single day into a writing or filming day in some capacity. And then on top of that, right, just try to perform live more.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So a couple follow-ups there would be, number one, do you think advertising could help you? Because I guess the unspoken rule would be that you should be profitable. Like I'm not telling you to just waste money to be seen. I'm saying like if you had unlimited access to money, I think your answer is very good. You would devote yourself to creativity and productivity. Okay. But do you think that like advertising for the show could be monetized? And then the second part of that question would be, do you think that you could tour the way a stand-up does? Do you think you could tour Chris and Matt and do limited engagements and pre-sell it with advertising and stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And there's a part of me that I want to think about advertising a little bit differently, because like there are plenty other duos or sketch comedians that I think are at a very similar level of me and Chris, where it's like, we have some buzz. We've got some people who appreciate us and follow us, but this is not any level of stardom by any means, right? Of course. So there are other people in the city of Chicago, at least that I know. I mean, some in LA too, that are kind of at this level. And every once in a while, I'll get like a Facebook ad for like either a new comedy song that they dropped or like something, and I'm just like, it feels gross to me, but I like what you said about like if you took the show on the road, like if it was a live show that was in a new city, hell yeah, I'd advertise the crap out of that. That would be so fun. So like, because we've done now 3 years of live shows that, you know, we could just pick and choose like the best of and almost do kind of like a greatest hits on the road.
Yeah.
And that would be wild. That would be amazing.
I bet you could do that. And not only that, but I bet that, you know, I think your comedy not only travels, but it probably would be more appreciated in places that don't have quite as much of it to choose from, right?
And that might be another spot we could drop in, perhaps a second video here, if not the first. We're talking about taking our show on the road. There literally is a video we have called Chris and Matt on the Road. And it's just, you know, if we took our show on the road and, you know, booked a Airbnb for the two of us, I won't say anything else, but it's a quick link.
We'll drop that clip right now.
So Megan was here last week and she said the flavors are great.
Oh, I love it. I think I want them all.
Okay.
I'm super excited.
Oh, hey guys, welcome to Scoopy. Scoopy, let me know if you want to try any of our flavors.
I honestly can't even choose.
Yeah, which ones are your favorite flavors?
Well, the Brambleberry Crisp is a fan favorite, as well as the Cocoa Crazy Crunch. But my personal favorite is Josh's homemade bean shard.
Okay. Bean shard?
Yes, Josh's homemade bean shard. It is made in-house, and it is downright delicious.
Very cool. What is bean shard?
Oh, it's made in-house.
I'm sorry, who is Josh?
It was a wild ride. You guys are going to love him. Josh! Josh! It's bean shard!
Hey ladies, how the fuck are we doing? So you guys want to check out the bean shard, am I right?
No, he's just been pushing it on us.
It's made in-house.
I told him.
Goddamn, I can see the look in your eyes. You dirty little scream queens want to see how Josh makes his sexy little bean shard.
Yeah, what is happening?
Check this shit out. Ooh, ha 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 ha. You can never predict. Yeah, then I pray to Ina Garten, let it freeze. Play a couple of rounds of Mario Speedway in my fucking beanbag chair. When I get done, it's frozen. And I just kind of scrape it off and I put it in your mouths and you guys jump for joy. Yeah, the bean shard's a messy business, but I'm stoked you guys are here.
Oh my god, no.
Okay, yeah, I'm so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna leave.
That's completely honest.
You guys, please. We've got an old saying here. You can't handle the bean shard. You can't handle the bean shard.
And anything you guys want, 50% off. We'd hate for your first experience here to be a bad one.
Okay, we can't say no to that.
Shard!
Okay, I think I'm gonna have...
Before you make your final selection, allow us to introduce a couple potential flavors. We got cherry goat dick.
A cherry goat's actually a hippo and the dick is the penis.
Reverse vanilla.
Reverse vanilla is where I make vanilla, where I normally make chocolate. We've got Fetty Wap and his whole crew.
That's where you get glaucoma surgery.
We've got the halftime show where Booby came out.
Justin Timberlake comes and sneezes on your feet.
Feet on the ground and my toes in the sand.
Supreme codeine.
Supreme Court Justice, let's figure this out.
Oh my god, stop it, okay? I literally hate all of this.
Yeah, we're leaving.
Please, you guys, please. The bean shard's my life's work. Please, just take some bean shard to go. Please, man. Please. Thank you. Here it is, the bean shard. You guys, you're gonna love this shit. Fuck yeah. Oh, awesome. 2 happy customers and 2 more shards.
I hate how good this is.
I'm literally so mad.
And welcome back. So the last question is, if you couldn't do the business and career that you have now and you had to start a new business tomorrow, what would that business be?
It's going to go back to what we talked about earlier. Like I like doing so many things. You know, this is one that, again, I don't think would be super profitable. Maybe it could be, but you know, you and I have talked about how I potentially would like to open a bar.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like I'm in this doubting phase where it's like, do I even want to do this anymore? But, you know, I had there's a bar that was around the corner from my last apartment here in Chicago called Cody's Public House. And Cody's Public House shut down for good in the pandemic, which is a huge bummer. What a big shame, because that place, like, I could not craft a more perfect bar for what I would like to go to. So it was like a shitty dive bar. Everything was made of wood. You could bring dogs in, and it's dog friendly. So yeah, obviously it didn't smell great because a shitty dive bar and probably dog piss everywhere. But like, it was cash only. You could bring food. You could have food delivered, or like they even had grills out back. You could, and I never did it, but just the fact that you could have like a cookout there was awesome. They had darts and pool, and they had cornhole, and they had a jukebox, and it was multi-level, and the back patio is amazing. It's just like shit. Like, I would love to, like, if I ever had a bar, like, that's the one. And so I was on a vacation with my girlfriend, Griffin, who is awesome. And that's it.
Shout out to Griffin.
Hi, Griffin. She and I were on vacation in Portland, Maine. And there's nothing to do in Portland, Maine other than eat and drink. I mean, I'm fine with that. But like, we're at like at one brewery or another. And I'm just like, man, like, this reminds me of Cody's. I wish we could go there again. Well, shit. Why don't I just make my own fucking Cody's?
Yep.
Like, why not? What's stopping me? And then I was like, well, shit, maybe I'll own my own bar one day.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I'll probably be able to do that, saving up money over the next 10 years. And then I started telling you about it, and you're like, motherfucker, if you want to start a bar, start a bar.
Yeah.
Why wait 10 years?
10 years? Yeah. So listen, it's funny you say that. I figured you would say that because we have talked about that, and absolutely do not wait 10 years. But so the through line I hear in everything you do, including your corporate job, is you bring people together. And I think that's something that's rare. And I think that's something that's incredibly valuable. And it's valuable in a way that's not necessarily financial, right? So you're doing comedy. Are you making a lot of money at it? Maybe not. Should you be making a lot of money at it? I think you could. We should talk about that sometime. You still coach classes at a CrossFit gym, and you don't pay your bills for that, right? You do that out of the goodness of wanting to be a part of that community, wanting to bring people together. You know, I said once, and we didn't talk much about your coaching at the gym and things, but I said very early on in hiring you, you came in with very little technical experience, but you were the life of the party. Everybody wanted to work hard for you. Everybody wanted to be in your class. Everybody wanted to take, you know, instruction from you and liked being in the class. That's enough for the most part. And then the technical stuff you learned and you got. And so through everything, you're a connector of people. You're somebody that people want to be around. I'm definitely one of them. I love everything that I've seen you do. You're one of the most talented people I know. So I really appreciate you taking the time today, Matt. And I'd love to have you back on anytime you'd come.
Yeah, man. I'm just going to go cry a little bit.
Get the fuck out of here. All right, guys. That's been the Spear and Clover podcast. Chris and Matt show. How do we find you? We'll have the links below, the show notes and everything. But shout us out. What are your social media handles?
Instagram, at Chris and Matt Official. Facebook, just search the Chris and Matt Show. Same thing on YouTube. I think the technical link is like youtube.com/C/Chris and Matt. Because I think the C stands for channel, right? So youtube.com/C/Chris and Matt. Honestly, if you just Google the Chris and Matt Show, you know, any person that knows how to operate a freaking computer will be able to find us. So check us out.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to show us some love by liking, rating, and subscribing so we can keep making more and better content. If you'd like to support the show and get a great additional content like exclusive shows and even live group masterminds, please head over to patreon.com/Spear and Clover to become a member of the tribe. If you're interested in learning more about how we help entrepreneurs, visit spearandclover.com or message us on any of our platforms. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.